Hi there, and welcome to This Day in History for November 12th. November 12th is the 316th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 49 days remaining until the end of the year. And we're going to jump right into it today, beginning in the year 1439, when Plymouth becomes the first town incorporated by the English Parliament. But we are talking here about the English Plymouth, not the American one. Did you know there was an English Plymouth? I mean, it makes sense, but I sort of missed that point before. This Plymouth is in the southwest of England in the county of Devon. On November 12, 1775, when John Adams' wife Abigail heard about England's rejection of the so-called Olive Branch petition, she wrote to her husband, "Let us separate. They are unworthy to be our brethren. Let us renounce them, and instead of supplications as formerly for their prosperity and happiness, let us beseech the Almighty to blast their counsels and bring to naught all their devices." Kind of the 1775 version of, "He said, what? All right, I'm over that bleep. We're done with him. I don't care what happens to him. He can go to hockey sticks." In 1799, the first meteor shower on record. Andrew Ellicott, an early American astronomer, witnessed the Leonid meteor shower from a ship off the Florida Keys. He wrote in his journal that the whole heaven appeared as if illuminated with skyrockets, flying in an infinity of directions, and I was in constant expectation of some of them falling on the vessel. They continued until put out by the light of the sun after daybreak. Ellicott's journal entry is the first known record of a meteor shower in North America. This is the birthday of activist Elizabeth Cady Stanton, born November 12, 1815. In 1864, the destruction of Atlanta begins. Union General William T. Sherman ordered the business district of Atlanta, Georgia, to be destroyed before embarking on his famous March to the Sea. Throughout October, Sherman had built up a massive cache of supplies in Atlanta, and then he ordered a systematic destruction of the city to prevent the Confederates from recovering anything once the Yankees had abandoned it. By one estimate, nearly 40% of the city was ruined. Sherman would apply the same policy of destruction to the rest of Georgia as he marched to Savannah. Before leaving on November 15th, Sherman's forces had burned the industrial district of Atlanta and left little but a smoking shell. Seems like an effective strategy, but yikes. Remind me never to get in a war with that guy. This is the birthday of the beautiful American actress and later Princess Grace of Monaco, Grace Kelly, who was born on this date in 1929. And on this date in 1945, Canadian singer-songwriter, guitarist, and producer Neil Young was born. In 1954, Ellis Island closed. Ellis Island, the gateway to America, shut its doors after processing more than 12 million immigrants since opening in 1892. Right now, an estimated 40% of all Americans can trace their roots through Ellis Island, located in New York Harbor, off the New Jersey coast, and named for merchant Samuel Ellis, who owned the land in the 1770s. 1979, Iran hostage crisis. In response to the hostage situation in Tehran, the U.S. President Jimmy Carter ordered a halt to all petroleum imports into the United States from Iran. In 1980, the NASA space probe Voyager 1 made its closest approach to Saturn and took the first images of its rings. In 1990, Crown Prince Akihito, the 125th Japanese monarch, along an imperial line dating back to 660 BC, was enthroned as Emperor of Japan 2 years after the death of his father. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee published a formal proposal for the World Wide Web. Sir Timothy John Berners-Lee, born in June of 1955, if anyone wants to know that, also known as Tim B.L., is an English engineer and computer scientist, best known as the inventor of the World Wide Web. Now, I'm going to pause here for just a moment to say that there were a couple of other stories, at least two, very interesting stories, but they involved some extraordinarily selfish, self-centered people who committed terrible heartless crimes as a way to try to get what they thought they wanted. I am pleased to say that in both of those cases, the evildoers were caught and prosecuted. Other than that, I won't trouble you with the specifics, other than to say that a couple of those things happened on this day in history. And if you'd like to know more about those juicy stories, or perhaps I should say slimy stories, you can easily find them in the links in the show notes. You'll be pretty easily able to figure out which stories I'm talking about. In 2001, a plane crashed in Rockaway, New York. Oh my goodness, I remember that one. An American Airlines flight out of JFK crashed into a Queens neighborhood after takeoff on November 12, 2001. Killed a bunch of people. Some from the plane, some on the ground. Initially, of course, people first jumped to the idea that it may have been the result of terrorism, since it came exactly 2 months after the September 11 attacks. But they were quickly able to determine that this was a terrible accident as a result of pilot error and wind conditions. And as a person who has ridden in a plane in windy conditions, I can tell you that a good pilot is pretty darn important. American comic book writer, editor, and publisher Stanley Martin Lieber, more commonly known as Stan Lee, rose through the ranks of a family-run business to become Marvel Comics' primary creative leader for 2 decades, leading its expansion from a small division of a publishing house to a multimedia corporation that dominated the comics industry. In collaboration with others at Marvel, particularly co-writer artists Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, he co-created numerous popular fictional characters, including superheroes Spider-Man, the X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Black Widow, the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and Ant-Man. Stan Lee died on this day in 2018. Rest in peace, sir. And I think that's going to be about enough for us today. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. So thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share this video. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. All right, let's try this again. Blah, 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 coffee mug. Hello, kitty. Hello, parody. In 1972, Your call cannot be taken at the moment, so please. They don't want to leave a message. Somewhere I have an outgoing message that says, if you're not going to leave a message, stop calling. But I don't think I have that one on my answering machine. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? She's not a man. Sure would be nice if I could ever read one of these in its entirety without having to start anything over. That would be awesome. I might have to take another look at that. I'm going to have to look at that. Oh, better take a look at that. This is why I don't do live shows.